The big, beautiful budget bill just signed into law by President Trump on the 4th of July. So, how did you spend your weekend? Well, before the start of the weekend, I knew that this was coming, but I didn't really expect the House of Representatives to just pass the Senate version, and I really did not expect President Trump to sign it into law on the 4th of July because I didn't think that the government was going to get its act together and actually get this done. So I have visions of cookouts and fireworks and spending time with friends, and I did do all of that. But in between all of those things was reading the 870 pages of the legislative text of the big, beautiful budget bill. I'm sure that just excited you to no end. But what's important in there were all the significant changes that are taking place with federal student loans, which is the biggest change to student loan in decades, and unfortunately, not for the better. I'm going to do a podcast episode on this coming up where I'm going to cover the bill much more in depth because there's a lot to digest. But here's the quick version, right? The Cliff Notes version, if you will. It is going to change how families are going to have to save and pay for college significantly. The bottom line is if you are going to have to borrow to pay for either undergrad or graduate school, you're going to be severely limited, and students will be severely limited in how much they can borrow, which means that you're probably going to have to look at different schools than you were expecting, right? You're probably going to have to be much more aware of price tag and much more aware of aid policies, because at the most expensive schools, unless you have the money saved or you do have the capacity to borrow in other ways, the limits are going to kind of prevent you from doing a lot. And you're going to have to think about the other aspects of your finances, because now federal loans are limited, so you might have to turn to private student loans. And private student loans look at your credit. So credit score matters and debt to income matter. So if you have a lot of other debt, let's say you have a big mortgage because you have a big house and you have a couple of car loans and maybe a little bit of credit card debt or something else, right? I'm not judging you, right? That's not it. It's, people have those things. But how you handle those things and how much other debt you have now will play a much bigger role in whether or not you're going to be able to borrow for your kid's college or whether or not your kid's going to grad school. You have to think a lot more about this. So, as I mentioned, a full podcast episode to come on this, covering all the details on what this really means for you as the parent. So stay tuned. As always, I hope you had a great holiday weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.